good night, all. The roll FIE's rush. Feel it in your belly, folks. We are here tonight along with my co-host, Mr. Kevin Paparazzi, and my producer, it's Brighton Road. And folks, tonight is the night we have the one only king, the legend himself, Mr. Percy Vola Francis King. How are you?
I am good,
How?
Charmaine. It's good to be in your company.
All right. We are excited to have you. I've been trying to line you up for a little while, but I didn't want to get you too early because, we got to get you close to end the season. Everybody having withdrawals now, so we got to make sure we see the face of the king to let us know everything's settled.
Oh yes, indeed. Yes.
So before we introduce the king tonight, we want to go ahead and do some. We're gonna do some housekeeping. We're gonna do some Junkanoo news. And I heard earlier today, well, actually, I all sparkly up thing because I feel like I just come with shock. I was decorating Christmas tree and everything is sparkling on that, just like I decorating the course. So I didn't have a chance to check Facebook earlier, but I noticed that Conrad, condolences to the Shell Saxon superstars. I understand Conrad passed today. So we send condolences to the Shell Saxon superstars on the path Conrad today. Also, we have for this particular week, I got some information that uh, I think Michael from one of the groups from Bahamas Air Roots, he said that the groups would be participating, Boxing Day morning. We would have Silent Barabbas. We would have 10 to 15 persons by Barabbas. Then we'll go through the pit. They'll have another 10 persons there. They'll have another 10 persons through Idiot Street. Then they will go down to Do and Be in Town and then skip over to Taylor Street and then over to Mason's Edition. So they're trying to get every different section in the bottom, so leading out for persons to be beating drums, ringing cowbells, like a 5 to 10 man combo to have Junkanoo Boxing Day morning so everybody can have the feel for it. So that's what's happening now um, in the Junkanoo world. So we want everybody to participate on that. But King, go ahead and introduce yourself now, and then you could talk a little bit about the condolences for your person from your group.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and the Bahamas all over. I'm Percy Wola Francis, leader of the Shell Saxon Superstars, and they call me the king. They call me Wola. They call me the boss. They call me Sledge. They call me Saigon. They have so many names to me. And of course, all of these names are significant with the periods that I've been involved with Junkanoo. And I want to take this opportunity right now to extend our sincerest and deepest condolences to the family of Conrad Wims, who passed away. I just got a call this afternoon confirming that. And we just want to say to his family right now that we are saddened by this. We have lost a good man. I mean, I had the opportunity to work with Conrad very, very close last year for the first time. He was quite a gentleman. He is really, really gone too soon. And so I want to say to his wife and his children tonight that that they are in our prayers. And I want all the Saxons to try and reach out to the family in this time of their bereavement. And also, I would like to add that one of our executive team members, Mr. Percy Paul, is presently hospitalized, and it is understood that he will be hospitalized for a couple of days more. Um, we also have to keep him in our prayers as well.
Right,
Yes,
yeah.
Charmaine Roll, I've been following you from all the way back in April. I think when you first started, and I was very excited about the things that you were doing. And I see where you're being sponsored by Bahamas Welding and Fire.
Yes, what's
And of
happening here?
course, that is
What's your,
tones and them are very near and dear to us, you know.
let me give you a
And
little bit.
so I just want to say
Go ahead.
hello to all of these Shell Saxon superstars tonight. I want you to know that this is a very, very unprecedented period for us. Of course, this is going to be the first time in 70 years that we are not going to have a Junkanoo parade. Because back in the early 40s, what was happening then was World War II. And then, of course, we also had the riots, the Bremer Road riot at that time. And of course, you know, there was a law that was passed that Junkanoo was a nuisance. And so you were not permitted to rush anywhere. If you were found rushing, you would be locked up. And I got a story from Glory Wallace recently, and he was telling me that he started rushing in 1948. And so that would have been, I guess, the kind of a restart of the parades. So that would probably take us into about 72 years. But this is a very, very, very unusual time for us. Um, Honestly, it's November already. By it's November. Last year, November, I was already into my New Year program. Um, I'm doing some stuff at home, trying to make myself useful, trying to do some things that are different, things that I always do. And so I had the opportunity to do that. So I'm presently doing that. But I think that we as a group, we need to put our heads together and let us try and figure out what it is that we can do I guess, for Boxing Day and for New Year's Day and for the Christmas period. We got to do something. I can't put my finger on it right now, but I'm sure that we are very innovative and a very creative group. And so I'm sure we can find ways in which we could be able to find something to do. I understand Roots and all of them are planning to do something. That's a good start. And so hopefully, I guess we eventually get all the groups to try to see what they can do. I'm sure the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture also is planning to do something virtually. And hopefully we'll get more information on that very, very soon, moving forward.
Okay, well, I calling you Sledge tonight.
Yeah, that's
Sledge,
fine.
something
You
of
know why they
action.
call me, you know why they call me Sledge, right?
Pleasure. The singing.
You know why they call me Sledge?
But you can tell us, give us this. Well, what I want you to do, Sledge, I want you to give us the history about yourself, how you started in Junkanoo, where you started from, because I've never really heard your story before. So that would be something great for other persons to really hear tonight. So tell us when you started as a little child, because I saw some pictures and stuff Darren was posting of you in. And I can remember as a little child, as my uncle and my dad sometimes bringing me debate, specifically my uncle. I used to watch you all the time, but I never knew who you was until I got a little bit older. Because I used to always say, "Oh, this man is dancing in front of him," you know. So I
Yeah.
just kept,
Okay, Charmaine, you would you this is this is a very interesting story about my life. Um, I was born in Coburn Street East, which will be the east of St. Agnes Church, up the dead end. And if you were to stand on the corner of Coburn and Market Street, the palm tree will be on your left, and the Capitol Theater would have been on your right, and across the street would have been the government ground we call the Southern Recreation Ground. Okay, I lived right up through there. That was referred to as the bakery corner because the corner also went around the bakery, and that was the back of the house. And so I am a city boy. I was born in the city of Farm Road, Coburn Street. All right. Now, back in the day, all the groups used to actually rush to Bay Street. Right across over from St. Agnes over in Hospital Lane, there was the Punch Bowl, right? Down on Blue Hill Road on Panzer Corner was John Chippy Chipman. Out on Ponciana Drive and Wolf Road in the area there on this western side of the Shell station was Megon. And then, of course, Little Caesar Skinny had a group in the bottom called the Bottom Boys, right? Coming out of the east was John Bull, Coca-Cola. I think your father at the time, Charmaine, would have had the Pepsi Cola group, all right? And of course, the Wally, everybody knew them. And yeah, and so what used to happen for me was I would hear all this rushing going over all the hills, over East Street Hill. Of course, you had the East Street Gang too, right? The Silver Slipper nightclub on the corner of Mason's Edition and East Street, right there, where the Chinese now have their new warehouse. That was a big nightclub. All that James Brown and all them used to perform there. And across the street from the Silver Slipper was the Cinema Theater. And so I was born in a cultural mecca, all right, with entertainment, with music. A lot of musicians actually came from the Mason's Edition area. And so, man, let me tell you something. When they used to rush over, I in my bed now, I can't go nowhere because I only 5, right? And so Dad would say to me, well, don't worry, son, we going out in a little while. As soon as they break, we going out, okay? And he would take me out religiously every Boxing Day and New Year's Day from I know myself. I was, like I said, around about 4 or 5 years old, right? And he would. So as we are going out now, sun already break. As we are going out, and junket used to be like 4 a.m. in the morning, from 4 a.m. till 9. All right. And then you have a lot of folks used to go to the theaters. They go to midnight show, and they get their Pepsi covers or their Coke covers and all that, and they would get in free. And so you'll have a lot of people go into the midnight movies, and I guess from there they'll go to Junkanoo. But I'll tell you this, that everybody was coming home when I was going out. So I said, Dad, I said, this thing over. He said, no, it ain't over. He said, this the first set. These are the people who've been up all night, and they already done see the first lap of all the groups and everything like that. And so they're going home. And so we are going now to catch the second break. So that would be that would have been between 6:30 and 9 o'clock. So by 9, the parade was over. And so Dad would take me out religiously, and he would put me up on his shoulder, right? I'll be sitting up here now. For him to have me up there, I must have been small, right? And so, yes, here's this man who comes swinging this cutlass around my head, every time I go, obviously, I didn't know that Daddy knew Sweet Richard, right? And not knowing that Sweet Richard was actually from Mason's Edition too. So I was raised in Mason's Edition with my grandparents, all right? And then just across the way over in Farm Road was my homestead. So I actually had tombs. So I'll be between both of them. Most of the time I actually spent in Mason's Edition, because Dad and those used to do a lot of travel. And so as a result of that, I spend most of my days in Mason's. Now, this man swinging this cutlass around my head, over and over, you feel like he can chop me, I don't think many people know Sweet. Most of the younger people wouldn't know Sweet Richard. But Sweet was a limbo and fire and dancer. and he performed in places like the Jonquil Club, which was at the edge of Bay Street. But I can remember him very well, coming out every Boxing Day and New Year's Day. He'd get in the front of a group, and he always dressed like a pirate in some way or the other. All right. Sweet never in his life wear shoes. If he was going to see the Queen of England, he would be barefoot. He barefoot, and he liked to be bareback too. Always with his chest open, and he always dressed like a pirate. Had on his swashbuckler, and then he always had like these knickerbockers, these three-quarter pitch pants. And I could see Sweet right now, him and George Moxey, the big musician, George Moxey. They had a Cadillac, and George would be riding around in their convertible, and then Sweet Richard would be sitting up on top of the back with his foot in the seat, and he'd just be driving around, and he'd be waving and hailing, and he always liked the slogan, "Cool it, daddy, cool it, cool it, cool it," you know. And I can tell you the truth, boy, that man played a serious role in my life. But like I say, Dad always took me out, and I really thank him for that. But I couldn't help myself, because I was born in the constituency of Jonquil. And if you take note of of all of the constituencies in Jonquil, they all ran all the way from Nassau Street all the way up to Camp Road. And just over the hill of all of those main streets, there was Jonquil. So it was right at the edge of over the hill was where you find the origin of most groups. Okay, a lot of people don't know that geographically speaking, just over the hill, and then of course there were groups just before that from the pond, which would have been the north of Hawkins Hill on the north side, the Shirley Street north side. You had groups also coming out of there as well, the Model Bakery, and then you had Sarge. Well, Sarge actually came out of the bottom, and then you had Spurgeon Smith, who actually was the man who started Gus. Gus actually started in that constituency of the pond, and of course, he lived just over the hill, right in the area of Home Fabrics. So yeah, so what I'm saying is all of us were basically influenced. I mean, you could chime in, you could hear John Canoe from home. From home in Masons, I could hear John Canoe. You could hear me from Farm Road, you could hear John Canoe. Because, I mean, there was Russian all over the place, And like I said, I couldn't help myself. And so that was the baby stage of my life, getting the influence from Sweet Richard. And actually, that's where I developed the Vola shuffle from the moves, from the chopping moves that Sweet Richard had with his cutlets,
Okay.
And he was just do the one hand. And I played Sweet Richard one year at the Bahamas Gumbe Summer Festival in '73, the first time we had a Gumbe festival downtown. And I played Sweet Richard, dressed just like him, bareback. But boy, I made a mistake. I was barefoot. Let me tell you something. My foot was so sore, I couldn't walk on my foot for 3 days, mine and Sweet Richard. Of course, I had a wooden cutlass, and he had the rail cutlass, but he had this chopping movement. You see, and what I actually did was I dropped the cutlass, and then I began to start chopping left and right. So I started doing this and that and this and that and this and all of that, and then I added the teeth and the eyes and the facial expression, and of course, the footwork was outrageous. But he had influenced me very, very much. I was saddened of the day that I heard that he had died, that he had gotten choked eating a piece of steak. But I mean, the legend, Sweet Richard, actually lives. He lives in me. He lives in me. And so, being raised in Mason's Edition, you had the Wallace brothers who were just south of the Silver Slipper Theater, and they will be drumming all year long. You hear these drums just keep going. So, like Glory told me that they used to manufacture drums. You see, and of course, it was in 1961 when the E Street Gang, which was a scrap gang first, they came together, got a sponsor from the Silver Slipper nightclub, which was owned by Clarence Bain, and Sweet Richard, Bruce Bennerby, the Wallace brothers with Glory and all of them, uh, Ozzy Foster, that was my main man, you know. Ozzy was also a fantastic drummer, so was Glory, and most of the Wallace brothers were drummers. And so you'll hear these drums will be going all year. Now, amazingly, you know, although we weren't permitted to rush in the streets, right? We'd have the opportunity to do so every Guy Fawkes, which was November the 5th. And that will be like a test run. And so we'll rush from Mason's Edition all the way to Fort Charlotte. And that is what it was traditional with groups. That's where you get your good workout, you know. But I'll tell you that it was 61 when they had the first organized group coming off East Street. I couldn't go to John then, so I was still underage, and of course, when we started our little group in Masons, right after the East Street Boys decided that they weren't going to do anything anymore, Phil Cooper actually started this little group in Masons. He said, "Let's do something." Because what happened was Phil used to rush for Caesar, who we used to call him Skinny, because he was a bike rider. He was a cyclist, right? And so Skinny actually started Phil out down with the bottom boys. And I remember Phil taking me down in the bottom one night with him. Of course, I don't know how I get down there, but I ran down, I sneaked down to the bottom, in the bottom with Phil. And that's where I get to meet Skinny and all that. And that year, they were bringing the costume, the Queen Guards. Now, you know, I was always artistic. I was born an artist. I always using my hands. I was very creative with my hands. I'm not a visual artist like some guys who paint, right? I'm not that type of artist. I'm a creative artist. I reach into the heavens and then I pull down. I get my inspiration from God, you know? And so being very, very, very creative and also artistic, Dad saw that in me. And he sent me to St. Agnes School Room. St. Agnes School Room, which would have been right across the street from the corner where I was born. You know, St. Agnes School Room, right there opposite the government ground. And I did art there on Saturday mornings with a man named Don Russell. Don was a Bahamian man who lived in New York, but he's very artistic, you know. And so Dad would send me to art lessons to Don. And Don was the man who teach me how to sketch, right? And when I sketch in my artistic conceptions, I do a lot of scratching. You know, I learned that from Don. You know, I scratch. I'll have about maybe 60 lines before I can get the real line I want. And so, yes, Don Russell actually started me. In fact, most of the artists actually came out of Don, the Burnside brothers, etc. Eddie Menes, a few others I remember came out of there. And so, yes, I was very creative. I was a church man. I lived in church. Every Sunday, I go to Sunday school at 9. I come out, and then after Sunday school, I come home and have dinner, and then we'll go to Sunday school. Sunday school in the morning, and the Sunbeam band was in the afternoon, and that started around 4, 3, 4, and then around 6 we'll have BTU, which is the Baptist, called the Baptist Training Union. And so I was a church man. And so I did a lot of stuff in church. I became the ambassador in chief of the Royal Ambassadors of the Salem Baptist Church, which was downtown opposite the Senate Tower, right there on Parliament Street, which is a law office now. And we started the Royal Ambassadors there, right? And I was ambassador in chief at the age of 9 years old. I knew the Royal Ambassadors manual by heart. I knew the order of service and everything. I made my own gavel out of wood. I carved out my gavel for my meetings and all that. And so we would do a lot of stuff. I mean, I thought we do hikes. We'd take our bicycles, we'd ride the whole island. We had softball teams. We had plays. Hey, I should have been in Hollywood, because I did a lot of acting around that time. And I used to memorize like 20 pages. And I would memorize the whole play. And I know just who coming in and who going out. And I know all of my parts. And I also did all the costuming for the plays. I also did all of the sets and everything for the plays. So even before I became involved with Junkerdo, right? I was artistic. I used to do all of these things. And it wasn't until when Phil took me down in the bottom and caused me to get influenced with this Junkerdo. And so we said to him, now, there is a shack in Mason's Addition, what we call the Spectrum. That is where Percy Paul actually works out of it. Now, if you're coming through Mason's, it would be right after you pass, it'll be Dead Cat Alley. After you come up Saxon's Way, there'll be Dead Cat Alley. Then there'll be Greenwich Street. And then about 50 yards right after that on your left, it'll be the Spectrum Shack, which is all the way in the back of the yard. Now, what is so historical about that particular property is that is where George Tanquest lived. We call him Ton. Ton was the man who was an individual Junkerdo. And so he will go down Bay Street every single Boxing Day and New Year's with his drum. And of course, he'll be dressed as a cowboy. You know, cowboys were really popular at Christmas. Everybody wanted to be a cowboy and they wanted to have their guns. That was the gift for Christmas for most young men in particular. Of course, you know, we had the little crackers and thing which you wind it in and then you press the trigger and you hear plop, 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 right? And so George was that kind of character. And so we had the meeting in George Yard. That yard would have been George Yard. All right, George Tanquest. And he had two sons, Junior and Sammy. Junior wasn't much of a Junkerdo, but Sammy was a top beller. So we had a meeting. The first meeting we had in that yard was Phil Cooper, Andrew Penniman, Sammy Tanquest, George Tanquest's son. And then we had a few, Phil had a couple of cousins in the yard, in that same yard, Perry Wallace and his brother, we used to call him Raker. And then we had the famous Lockett brothers, Eddie and Star Lockett and Jay Lockett. Boy, and they were first cousins of Phil. So you notice how we are starting off with this family, and then right down the road on the back street, which was a dead end, there was Glory Wallace and the Wallace brothers. It was 8 brothers. So, you know, we had no problem with no drum and thing, because them fellas had the music already, you know. And so Phil, we said to Phil, before the meeting now, we said to Phil, why do you have to go down to rush with the bottom boys all the way in the bottom? Why you don't let start our own little thing, right? So man, hey, listen, unbelievably, um, Phil decided, like I say that year when we had that first meeting, I can never forget that day. That was a wonderful, wonderful day. Now, interesting enough, Phil had a brother named Connie, right? Connie was older than Phil, and of course, they had a back room where they had a back door. So you didn't really need to go through the front of the house. They would have the wooden doors, and of course, Connie was the man who would have been designing all this stuff, making all of these hats out of cardboard and all this kind of thing. I watching him now, I ain't missing nothing, right? And listen, Shamid, you would not believe this. We used to sew cardboard together with sail, needle, and cord. Now, I can tell you, I sew plenty costume. I don't even know where my fingers were on some given days, because it ain't no use using no temple, because temple wasn't for that kind of needle. Temple was for dressmaking and things like that. But for Junkanoo, you had to have the sail needle, which was a bigger one. It was could have been about maybe 3 inches long with a big eye so the cord could get through there. And so Connie actually showed me how to design these costumes, how to cut them, how to make them, and everything like that. I thank God for Connie boy, because I can tell you the truth. He started me off, and that was it. That year it was 1962. That was 62. I had entered Prince William High School in 1961, coming out of high school, and the school was right there on Rosetta Street on the hill, just before you get to insurance management, which is an insurance company right now, Crown Life or something. I don't know if they're still there, but that was where I went to high school. That was the Central Baptist Church. And let me tell you all something. Me and my daddy going to school together. We was in the same class. Me and Earl Francis, Reverend Doctor, God rest his soul. And it's amazing. But he went to do theology, all right, because he was going to be a pastor and all that. So he did theology, and they taught theology at that school. So at times, if he needed to do English, we'll all end up in English class together. Now, I was, man, I don't think I was even a teenager yet, or just about 18. And so he said to me one day, he said, son, he said, I am your daddy, right? But in school, I am your brother. I want you to look at me as your brother while we're in school. So we are brothers. And so one good thing with daddy going to school with me was I had to worry about no lunch, you know. There was a woman named Doris Cambridge who lived through Hay Street. And Doris actually, and daddy would type because she used to go to Salem Church too. So I get a credit lunch. Even if he wasn't there, I get a credit lunch, but he got to pay, of course, at the end of the day. But anyway, I say that to say this, because one evening when I was coming from school, Phil Cooper and Andrew and all the corner boys were underneath this juju tree in the Seymour yard, which would have been right in the back of the V2 bar, which is still right there now, the little bar on the corner of Greenwich and Mason, right? We used to have a congregate right underneath that tree. And so I was coming home from school. Andrew them never used to play. They were some serious fellas, right? So they said to me when they say, well, come here, man. Say, man, I hear you could draw. I say, yeah. I say, who tell you all that? He say, man, we hear that, man. Say, let me see what you could do. So I drew something for them. I actually drew a hibiscus, right? And of course, doing biology, I love biology. And of course, the petals with the stamen tube and the stigma and the calyx cup and all them things, the bud, I actually drew that for them. And they say, oh, you really can draw it. See, man, you got to come draw for us, man. You know? And so, yes, I was influenced by that aspect. Well, that was prior to getting involved with Phillipsburg County. That was prior to that. But I had to just plug that in so you could know how this whole thing started. And amazingly enough, I used to do a lot of apprentice work. Dad will send me to do apprentice work after school. I did shoe repair at the shoe store, at Wilson Shoe Store. I used to do shoe repair. I used to work leather, and of course, I know about shoes. And then I used to go on the hill by the 66 steps. Oscar Johnson had a printing press there, printing company called Craftsman's Press. I grew up in Craftsman's Press. And then at Craftsman, that's where I learned all the different types, Old English, Gothic, italics, bold, whatever, all the fonts, right? I learned them. And I learned all the different types of paper, all kinds of paper, right down to onion skin, right? Because some of the letterheads were back in the day, people had onion skin letterheads, right? And so I had that particular experience. And so I used all of that and combined all of that stuff together. And I remember I helped them out with the first costume we did was the French infantry. Okay. We were a very, very small group. When I say small, I don't want small group. About could have been about 30 guys around about there, maybe a little bit more. But we had a nice little combination, you know. We used to rush through the neighborhood, sneak through the neighborhood because the police can run you anyway. And the barracks are right there, so they get here anyway. And so I had problems doing my homework on the nights of rushing. I had problems, right? And so I would leave my books to go in the streets to rush. I mean, I wouldn't say I regretted doing that because maybe that was the course of action. So we'll get run by the police sometimes. But I remember this particular time. I'll never forget this. Phil was a very good drum maker, along with the Wallace brothers and Andrew and all of them. We used to make our own drums. We'll get our salt beef barrels from Mr. Sands' shop, which is still there, but his shop is still there. We use it as a shack sometimes. The shop is still there, but what he would do, he would secure all of the barrels for us because salt beef came in those barrels. And so we used salt beef barrels. Those barrels were very uniquely made, very light, and they were wooden. And let me tell you something. When you see Phil stretch a piece of skin across one of them, right? And he go like this. Well, listen here. I talking about the sweetest kind of rhythm you want here. Ain't much fellas gonna touch Phil with that sweet, juicy rhythm we had. Soul music, soul. So we used to have all these nice, fine drums. And believe you me, there was a guy from the Valley. He was a policeman, Edward Fitzgerald, big time drummer for the Valley. When they hear us rushing, he'll bring the police car and they'll confiscate our drums. Now you believe that? They confiscated our drums. I remember one night that the drums were so taut that when the police throw the billy at the skin to voice it, the billy bounced back and lick him in the forehead. That's how powerful those drum skins were. And so we had a hard time with the police, But of course, like I say, those were the days. they had the law and thing, and we had sense enough to go to the barracks and ask the police for permission and all that. Well, it really wasn't much cars. Wasn't much cars coming through the neighborhood. Of course, all the roads were dead end. Mason still is a dead end. McCullough Corner is now, the wall has been broken down there. All right. So that became a main thoroughfare, and that's how we get the high traffic zone now. But back in the day, we had no problem with no car. I was like one or two car every must be 15 minutes or so, or even half hour. But we had a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful time. And I could tell you this, right? During all of this, I could not rush. But I was in the shop, the Lockett brothers, Eddie and Lockett, Star, and Jay Lockett and them, they teach me how to cut paper, teach me how to paste, Man, ain't nobody gonna beat us cutting paper, man. We cut paper for the whole group, and then and then I remember that right down through Greenwich Street, there was the Olivers, right? Mr. Oliver had a son named Carl Oliver who was in set with us. And so, John Kudu well, it was hard to be accepted in the neighborhood, I wouldn't dream of bringing John Kudu around to Francis' house, And so Mr. Oliver, who was a professional painter, he painted for my uncle Carl Francis. And of course, because of the relationship that Carl had with Mr. Oliver gave us a one-bedroom house right in the back of his house, which would have been about 4 houses down from Phil Cooper's house. And so that was our little shack. And we used to be in there, pacing. We used to pace for everybody, cut for everybody, build for everybody, and everything like that. I used to have more, well, of course, flower pop was the thing then. Flour and water. I used to have more flour on me, right, than what I have on the clothes space. So I couldn't lie about where I've been. Because once I get home, my grandma will say, "Oh, you've been in that shack again." Paste all over my face, all over, And so, yes, we started right there. And like I say, we had the E Street gang, and of course, the McCullough Corner boys, along with the Masons Edition boys, the Burial Ground Corner boys. What a lot of people don't know is this, right? Masons Edition is a subdivision. I want you to hear this. It's a subdivision. Back in the day, they used to call those subdivisions addition, right? So Masons Edition now will be Mason Street, all right, McCullough Corner, and Burial Ground Corner. That was the territory of Mason's Edition. But a lot of people think Mason's Edition is actually that road that takes you out end of that's actually Mason's Street. Okay. And across the wall, you had Sayers Edition. And like I say, that is what they had referred to those constituencies or those subdivisions as. They were called editions. And so the popularity of Mason's Edition was very unique in that some really prominent people came out of Mason's Edition. When I say prominent, I talk about prominent, right? You had right in the back of the Silver Slipper would have been the Thompsons. That would have been Sweet Bell's grandfather, and his brother was DeWitt. His father was DeWitt Thompson. And so the Thompsons actually came out of Mason. Across the street was Mr. Bain. He had a big 2-story house there. And that is where Sir Lyndon Penland was raised. He was raised in that particular house. Carlton Francis, my uncle, the big time teacher who taught many of us, right? He went to Edinburgh, Scotland, the University of Edinburgh, where he got his Master and Bachelor of Arts, all right? and he was a known educator. Across the street from him into the hill was Donald Davis. All right. So you had Francis on one side and Davis on the next side, prominent teachers. Around the corner on the park itself, right? You had a two-story house on the park. That was before it became the park. And Ruth Thompson actually, Ruth Clark first, and she married a Thompson. All right. And so the Thompson would have been related to Father Marshall Cooper, who the park is named after, who would have been Ruth's grandfather. But Carlton Francis was the one who went to the government. In fact, he was in the government at the time as the Minister of Finance, etc., Minister of Development, and a couple of other appointments. But he was the one who actually went to the Prime Minister and asked the Prime Minister to make that property a park, because that we used to call that it was like woods. It was like a woods kind of thing, and the two-story house was unoccupied, so it was haunted. We used to call it the haunted house and all that, and so it used to be really scary when you walking through that bushy area. The sapodilly tree is still there, but Carl Francis actually was the one who negotiated us to get that as a park, so that the children of Mason's Addition could play. All right. Now, I just want to say that because there are far more people that actually came out of Masons than I said I told you. All right. But I can remember a guy we used to call Bunks, Big Bunks. Bunks was a guitar player, musician. And so Bunks joined our group. And he was a fantastic drummer. Now, because the influence that Bunks had, he was he was in the yard, which would have been south of McCullough and Saxon's Way, in that area. Right away, Saxon's Way was called Porcupine Street. And the name Porcupine Street actually was named after the Porcupine Club, which was on Paradise Island, which had something to do with the Ocean Club. But the Porcupine Club, I understood that a lot of people from Mason's Addition actually worked at the Porcupine Club. And so seeing that the people actually worked the Porcupine Club, they named that Porcupine Street. But we, the Saxons, growing up in an area like that, we decided, hey, no man, we need a relative name. And so I can remember the big ceremony we had naming that Saxon's Way.
Okay, but Vola, I have a quick question
yes,
for you.
yes.
Got their name, the Saxons. How did you get that name?
I'm glad that you asked me that, because it's an amazing story. All right, it's an amazing story. After we had developed ourselves in Mason's Addition as a group, all right, we never missed a parade. We were consistent. We used to get what we call consolation prizes, and the consolation prizes were like 20 pounds, all right, which sound like a lot. Back in the day, that was plenty money, but it sounds like a lot. But we try to spend our money wisely. After we come off Bay Street, we'll have our little party and all that. But what happened was that after I started designing costumes for the group in 1962, and as I got better and I got better, 63, and then of course 64, we brought a costume called the Royal Choir Boys. All right, and we came in fourth. So in 64, right, we began to be recognized as a small group out of Mason's Addition, but we were the Mason's Addition Boys. We didn't really have a name. We wanted to call ourselves Immortals, but of course, there's only one immortal, and that's God. And so we say, you better don't be stupid and call yourself immortal, because you know, you can dead. So how you can be immortal? All right. So anyway, 1965 was Thunderball. Now 64, we were sponsored by Beck's Beer. Because I remember I went downtown walking one day after school looking for sponsor. And when I got to the end of Bay Street, there was a liquor store and there a man by the name of Mr. Fisher. And I said, Mr. Fisher, we have a small group over the hill, a small juvenile group, but we don't have no money. You know, I want to know if y'all could sponsor us. And you know, right there, and then Mr. Fisher gave us a check. All right. And we was able to come out with Becks, because I can remember seeing the word Becks on the back of the Royal Choir Boys costumes. All right. But he only sponsors us for that particular year. Now, here's the story. In 1965, right, was the year of Thunderball with James Bond. All right. And of course, the Vikings had just started the New Year's of 1964 for the first time. So they had the Vikings, and then that Christmas, I think they came out with ABC 1, 2, 3. Now they were a group of men that actually rushed with guts in the valley because all the Vincent Sherman and all them and Brian Boldy Gibson and the whole crew of them, they used to go to St. John's College. You see, Gus was a scholar of St. John's College as well. And so the majority of them actually went with Gus, including Snimy Thompson. Also, that's how he became a Valley, because he went to school with St. John's with Gus. And so the Vikings actually, when they graduated from St. John's, they left them and then they formed their own group in the West. And they got the name Vikings from a costume of the same. All right. Now, Thunderball, the Vikings actually won that parade hands down. They came with the United Nations, with the flags and the globe hats, etc. And the Valley came with the dice with gambling. And so they became reputable. The Vikings became reputable immediately. But of course, they had already got all the experience that they wanted to from Gus and the Valley. Now, we didn't have a sponsor in 1965. So we said, well, saying that we ain't got no sponsor, don't look like we can rush this year. All right. So here comes Winky Davis and his brother Prince Davis. Here they come, right? Through the corner looking for Phil Cooper. And they came to Phil and say, Phil, seeing that they all ain't got no sponsor, we have a little group up in Augusta Street and Meaden Street. We have a little group up there. Say, we want to know if y'all could join us, right? Man, listen here. We jump on that, man. And in no time, we had this meeting. I remember attending that meeting, 3 or 4 of us. There was a 3-story house on the corner of Augusta Street and the Lancey Street, which was where this guy Liberty lived. I gotta get Liberty real name. I can't remember. You know, but you call people by the nickname. So, but Liberty actually was the big man. I could see him. Now, right next to Liberty, where he lived, was Bradley Roberts, and Bradley Roberts was actually the big man at Bahamas Blenders. You see, so Bradley gave the Meeting Street, Augusta Street, West Street boys sponsorship, Bahamas Blenders, right? So here we are now. We are walking in to a wonderful opportunity of a sponsorship coming from Bradley Roberts at Bahamas Blenders. Now, the main man in this whole affair was John Ragnar Munnings. John was a Valley boy, right? Munnings. And then John went and did a little stint with Winston Sherman with the Vikings, right? And that is how he got the name Ragnar. Because you know, Ragnar is a Viking god. You see? And so the West Street, Leicester Street, Beaton Street boys, including Fred Papa Smith and Peter Brown and all the rest of them guys, the basketball boys of the Prairie, right? They were dissidents of the Vikings. In other words, they couldn't fit in to the upper echelon of that particular group. They couldn't fit in. And so they decided they was going to do their own thing. And so we all came together to form a coalition of East Street and West Street. All right. Now, the costume that we went to see at Liberty's house was a Saxon costume. All right. And so he took me in the attic of that 3-story house. The house was so tall you could see all over the harbor and everything. But he had this particular costume. The Saxons, of course, he might have been influenced by the Vikings, right? And it was already built, already pasted, and so on. So they took me in, and I looked at it. It looked all right to me, you know. I mean, I wasn't overly impressed with it, but we had no car, we had no bike and things, so we had to walk back from Augusta Street to Mason's Addition. Walking was the thing, right? So me, Phil, I think Andrew Penniman, we went to that particular meeting, and I can tell you this. So Phil asked me what I think. So I said, Phil, I don't like the colors, right? Because they had a lot of green and black and red. They had a lot of drab colors. And you know me, I was born in a flower garden. You know, my mom was a florist. So I was born in a flower garden. And you know, there was nothing but colors around, nothing but colors. I'm talking about insects and butterflies and bees and all sorts of colorful stuff, you know. So with me having an eye for color, I told Phil, I said, Phil, I think we can need to look at that color combination. And then he said, well, what about the helmet? I say, don't worry about the helmet. I got the helmet, you know, because, you know, I was a hat man. So don't worry, I say, I got the helmet. Charmaine, let me tell you something. When I rebuilt that helmet, right? People from West Street, Hospital Lane, Augusta Street, Meaton Street, they came in droves in Mason's Addition, you know, and so I was overwhelmed with gratitude. Man, they say, man, well, I want one of them, you know, and so we kind of changed the whole sort of combination of what they had. And from that particular year on, everything was focused in Mason's Addition. Now, hold on now, I got one more thing to say about that. But before that, I tell you, I couldn't rush, right? My grandpa them thought that Junkanoo were once you were called a Junkanoo, you wasn't nobody, right? So they wasn't for that, right? No, sir, not Percy. No way. No, sir, right? And I was hooked, man, because I really wanted to run. So Phil and Andrew, I think 2 or 3 of us, I went and knocked on my own door, right? My grandpa came to the door, and Phil said, Mr. Francis, he said, what y'all boys want? What y'all want? You know, my grandpa and I used to play. Say, we want to ask you if Percy could rush. Rush where? Rush where? He ain't rushing no place. So my grandmother, he was very short. So my grandmother came to the door and she stood over him and she wanted to find out what was going on at the door. And then he said to her, say, this Mr. Cooper and his son, they come asking if Percy could rush. And so she said, Elisha, that's his name. He said, Elisha, let the boy rush. Let the boy rush, right? I think I was about 12. And so he said, all right, Phil Cooper, promise me that y'all will protect him, right? If y'all could promise me that, right? Y'all straight, y'all could have him. And then they promised, they said, well, all right, Mr. Francis, we will ensure that we will look after Percy for you. And I can tell you, from that day to this day, no one messed with Vola Francis. That would be the biggest mistake you could make if you mess with me, right? Because boy, I can tell you, I had some people around me, it was serious. There was an incident, but I don't want to talk about that because it was violent, right? One fellow approached me and he got hurt, you know. And so I don't want to talk about that, but that's the kind of thing I'm talking about, right? And so they promised, they reassured my grandparents that they would take care of me. Now, because we were carrying this costume called the Saxon, right? We had Saxons on everything, all on our water boats when we used to do rehearsals. I used to actually print shirts, sweatshirts. I used to print them, hand print them, because you know I was a painter as well, and I would do all these designs on these shirts with Saxons, and everybody wanted one of them, and that helped me with my school fees as well. Also, I used to pace for a guy named Donald Russell from Hawkins Hill, who was a Valley boy. So every year, he would bring a Wally costume over to my house for me to pace. Of course, you know, he had to pay me, you know. And so I would know what the Valley bring in every year. So I thank God for Gus because Gus actually inspired me into the world of costuming and the world of jumping. He inspired me, right? And you know what's so amazing? When we first started our little group in Mason's Edition, the first thing we said we were going to do was we were going to form a group, right? So we could find a way for our young men to have positive activity, right? And we decided that in doing so, we'll bring hope to our community. And I can tell you the truth, even today, the only Junkanoo group can be identified with a territory is the Saxons and Masons Edition. So you don't mind all these people talking about there's community this and community that. They get that from us. We started that, and we still have that, and that still stands out today. Now, the Saxons was on everything, and then I can remember one afternoon. This might have been around, could have been maybe October, somewhere around there, September, October. Raymond Ferguson came. Raymond got a seat in, and he came into my bedroom because we were neighbors, and well, he's a Saxon stalwart now, you know, you better believe it. And he came in the room. He said, "Well, you might as well call this group the Saxon, you know, right?" And so the name Saxons actually stuck on us, stuck on us. And that year was 1965, Charmaine, when we got the name Saxon.
Well, I always hear Raymond once when I used to be coming on the show and stuff talking about the origin of the because he always had a story. And he always say 1965. You talk about that year, you know, when
Yeah.
you're attention. But
that was a big year. That was a big year for us.
I can truly say, since the Saxons is I always tell people when it comes to Junkanoo, Saxons come together like you say, a family, like a group. They come to rush you, and when you hear the Saxons coming, you know, they come with power, with unity, you know, and that's what I get from Shell Saxon Superstar, especially in the Masons, a different area. I call Mason's Park the heart of the Saxon. That's what I call it. That's what I call it. You know, when I come there and I interview in that, because if you want to always find a member of the group, you go to the park. So it's called right there, the heart of the Saxons.
I mean, you know, it is a good thing. It is a good thing that we can identify ourselves with that particular community. Um, Now we're looking at second generation coming out of there right now. In fact, you would not believe this. We, when we became the name Saxons, that is when we became reputable, right? Because I remember in 1966 now, right? 66 at Boxing Day, we took the Enchanted Islands of the Bahamas, and I had designed the conch shell hat, right? And then we took the all the crest of all the islands, because at that time, that particular year was when Parliament did something. Something happened at Parliament that year, and they had all of these crests of the different islands, and so that is what we brought along with the conch shell hat, Enchanted Islands of the Bahamas, and we did very well that year. I think we came fourth again, you know. But like I say, we was in the money, and I remembered that in 1967 now, which would have been the 66 New Year's. Sorry, 66 Boxing Day going into 67 New Year's, right? The Lollipop Boys from Cameron Street off Market Street, Casey Campbell and Sickatone Johnson, and the brothers Kaide and Irvin and Bat Phil, Kenny Mary Fox and Jay Fox and Katanga Johnson. Man, listen, that whole Ada Hicks, that whole crew came because they didn't have a sponsor, right? And they used to beat us, you know. They used to beat us. That was a little small group too. They used to beat us. And 67, they came. I can never forget that day when Bozy actually came and said, we coming to join y'all. I can tell you the truth. We had groups joining us, small groups joining us. We had nine different small groups join us to become the Saxons, right? And of course, we got third prize that year at New Year's of 67 with the time clocks. We had clocks telling the time, different kind of clocks, you know. Of course, you know, my clock was the cool clock. I had the little boy come out, you know.
Let me give
And
I have somebody that's watching. Told me to ask you to do the sound of the beating of the soil drum.
yeah.
Drum said they want you to do that sound again with your mouth.
Okay, all right. Well, that's how Phil used to be. Phil used to go, right? And then you had one of the Wallace brothers, who I would say was one of the best drummers in the Bahamas, Nelson Wallace. They call him Blimp. You probably heard of him, Blimp. Let me tell you something. Along with that and storm and that and stack, before I listen here, ain't nothing you gonna do with us. Nothing.
Music.
Nothing.
And then back in the day, that used to be the real music, because you only had cowbells and drums. You ain't had all these other percussions and the full brass and, you know, all that different stuff. Papa, you still there? You have any question for Vola? Because, child, this is so interesting tonight. I learned so much tonight, Vola. I always want.
Vola, give us a history lesson right now.
I can't even ask no question.
I have a few questions, but I gotta wait till you come to 2020, so I gotta wait a little while longer.
Listen here, Papa. Boy, that Phil Cooper could have beat it with drum here. That Phil could have beat a drum, boy. Boy. I know some stories, but Phil, I can't. I rather not share that with you. But of
I am.
course, he
Don't
was
take it
that. He
now.
was.
Go
He
ahead.
was. Phil
Be
was
that.
the man. Phil was the man. Phil was a pretty boy too, boy. Pretty, pretty, pretty man. I mean, he was a ladies' man. You know. Of course, he spoiled us, right? But anyway, we got that third prize. Now that year of '66, I pasted a costume for my brother, Dr. Emmanuel Francis Manny.
Right
Because
now.
we still looking for people now. We still looking for members. Because we still ain't had enough members. We wanted to grow. So I influenced my brother to be a part of the Saxons. I pasted his costume, his first costume. And I can tell you the truth. That fella, Emmanuel Francis, you see there, that's a brain box. He went to Fisk University and Mahari Medical, right? And this guy got his degree with distinction. I talk about 100. You don't hear much about distinction now. That's how smart he was. So he caught on very, very quickly. So he assisted me, right? After I gave him his first course, he assisted me in designing, right? And that particular Christmas, the Christmas of '67. Now we already done joined up with the Lollipop '67 New Year's. So '67 Christmas now, right? We were carrying the crawfish, and we call it the crawfish favorite Bahamian seafood. Okay, because we were on a Bahamian trend. We were on a Bahamian trend, and so we wanted to remain on that trend because we wanted to touch the heart of the people, right? Wanted to touch the hearts of the people by doing something local and something indigenous. So here we are with this crawfish. We made those hats out of wire bending. Wire bending was a big thing along with the cardboard, but wire bending was a big thing in Junction, right? And I can tell you the truth, ain't much fellas could beat me and Manny building out of wire. I tell you, we could form anything out of wire, right? Now, used to take after you do your wire framing, right? And you put your cardboard crown up in so the crawfish actually came across your face like that, right? And then there was a little hole like this in it to see out. So that means you were embedded in this cage-like thing that we'd built. Now the cage like had the antennas going up, right, out of the cage and coming down, right? And then we had the antennae or whatever there, and we had the eyes of the crawfish up in here. Man, listen here. And I can never forget when Sir Rags, we call him John Ragnar Munnings, went to the dock on Portisky Dock and bought a real crawfish. He has the drawings today, still have the drawings today. He brought the real crawfish, and I took that crawfish and I tie him down on a piece of board, spread out his tail and everything. And I drew that costume out in detail, Charmaine, detail, right? And then turn him over and got the underside with the legs and everything like that. So we have this chest thing on it. Man, listen here. So, the real crawfish ain't really got no nice colors. They get a little bit of this, a little bit of yellow, a little bit of brown, a little bit of black and stuff like that. So we couldn't find no paper, right, that was suitable to color the crawfish with. So we say, why don't let's boil it, right? So we boiled the crawfish. Of course, we had lunch. We boiled the crawfish. Crawfish turned red. So we had no problem after that. Everything was pretty, red and yellow and black and white, and oh man, I
That's
can
how
see
the
me building. I can see me building them tails right now, Charmaine, them crawfish tail. Boy,
oh,
listen here.
how Saxons get them colors, because Saxons color is red, yellow, well, red, gold, and white with little black. So that's how I identified. I telling you, that's how I identified the Saxons. That just to be their basic
Yeah.
colors.
Yeah. That was a trend. Now, to be honest with you, right? We had that crawfish going, boy. We had that going, right? Now, what I did was I started to spy, I go around the Vikings to see what they had. Well, me and Sherman, all of them used to work to Batelco, so they didn't mind me coming around, because they say, oh man, y'all can't be this man. Y'all is a bunch of little boys at Mason. Y'all ain't ready, right? So I went by Shem, and he had the peacocks, right? I went by Chippy. Chippy had the eagles. And that's all the houses you see down through Plantal Street there. Not Plantal Street, Lily Checkpoint Street now they call it. What that was, that's Life Boy. But he's building all them houses down through there. So most of them are shacks. So I go down through there. I spy it now. I go on to Bookie, Bookie used to build for Chippy. And boy, I see some eagles what they had there. And then the Wally was bringing the birds and the bees. Lord help me. So the Wally get birds, Chippy get birds, Vikings get birds, and they was big. Trust me, when I say big, they were big. So I went back to the group and I said to them, I said, now, if we smart, right, we'll hold back this crawfish for New Year's because it ain't gonna be no chance for us going up against the Valley and Chippy and the Vikings. We only can get mash up in this. So you better let's use wisdom and let's hold back and let's do like an old time Junkanoo something for Christmas. And that's what we did with the toss a lot and everything like that. And then within the week of Boxing Day and New Year's, I built this gigantic crawfish for John Ragnar Munnings, right? Gigantic. When I say gigantic, this piece would have probably been about at least 12 feet high, right? So I built that for him. And, we had those real nice colors, like I tell you. Man, listen here, Charmaine. When we hit Bay Street, coming down, and Chippy spot us, this was the New Year's now, because we know they wasn't gonna have nothing. The Wally had the St. George and the Dragon. Chippy had some seahorse or something like that and all that, right? And I can't remember what the Vikings had, but anyway, when we came down, as we were coming, those tails were flapping. John Chipman, God rest his soul, I was in front. He came and he kneeled down in the front. He came and kneeled down in the front of me, and he said, "Jesus, Lord, Vola, you got me this morning, right?" He said, "We look like we just come out of the water." That's how real them things was, and all of them was colored the same way, same design, same pattern. Nice, and we won our first parade on the New Year's Day of 1968. Never to forget it. Let me tell you what we did. We ain't sleep that day, After we went, we rush over the hill. We rush over the hill. We gone in the Wally, we gone on Royal Avenue, we rush on Royal. Let them know, boy, we reach, Saxon reach. And then from there, we're being sponsored by Bahamas Blender, so the Bears was flowing, and Heineken was our sponsor. So all we had was beer. So we went to Sanders Beach. We still got our record terminal. We went to Sanders Beach that afternoon. I've been around maybe 1, 2 o'clock. Drink some beers, eat some chicken, whatever the case may be. And we gone overboard with them costume on. You hear me? Overboard. and the whole sea turned red.
Wow.
Now that's the Red Sea. That's the Red Sea. That's the kind of experience that we had with our first men. And my brother Manny was really, really influential with that. And from then we was on a roll. We was on a roll. We came 69 Boxing Day, we came to the African jungle. Now Slimy, my boy, still was rushing for the valley, right? And so Slimy used to spy on us. And he'll take the news back to Gus. And I can remember Gus recalling some of his costumes. Whenever they see us and they get enlightened, he recall some of his costumes, break them up, and start them over fresh. You hear me? And so we got second that morning, right? And then of course, by 1970, Slimy became a Saxon. And as a result of all of the boys from Market Street now who've joined us, all of them used to say, because Slimy lived on the corner of Hay Street and Market Street. So everybody said, man, Slimy, man, listen, man, you gotta come home, man. What you came over there for? You was our boy, I can tell you the truth, my friend. 1970, Slimy became a member of the Saxons. We were still the Saxons then. We didn't get the other names yet. I have a long story, so we didn't get the names. Maybe we could do another decade, another night charming. And so he came. Now I can tell you the truth. Slimy was a brilliant man, brilliant, very smart, right? He's going to UWI then he went to do his surgical to be a surgeon actually, right? He was also artistic. Slimy was very artistic. Slimy to me would have been one of the best sketch artists that I've ever seen. I was unlike him because I was more creative and he was more visual. And so yes, he became an integral part of it. Now Gus didn't like that. God rest his soul. Gus didn't like that. He was hot. And not only Gus was hot, but Slimy used to rush for Chippy too. You see? So when he was 12, I was 12, we all started around the same time. He used to rush for Chippy and he left Chippy and gone to the valley. And Chippy was hot. And his mother was hot with him. But I think that was the best decision that he had ever made when he came to be a part of us. And he and I actually became best friends, And I can remember my dad bought a car. And I used to have the car so much. He said, man, listen, why you don't let me give you this car and you finish the payments, right? I had a nice little job at Betelco. And so dad gave me the car. Of course, he gave me the responsibility of the payments as well. And Slimy and I, we were every single place on this island. We went everywhere on this island, to parties, to weddings, to Waltz. We just had the most fun, And we used to dress. I mean, when I say dress, we used to dress to kill. And half of the niggas in town used to dress like me and Slimy. And then being Junkanoo, I remember I had an orange blazer. With a royal blue pants, with a yellow shirt underneath, and an orange and white tie. And let me tell you something. Hey, I'm talking about 2-color shoes, and, but that's how we roll, man. That's how we roll. And Slimy became an integral part of the Saxons, up to becoming a co-leader. Of course, he was a co-leader from an artistic perspective. And you talk about could bend cardboard. See, only 2 fellas in Jungle who could bend cardboard. That's me and him. Ain't much fellas could bend cardboard like us. And I can tell you, ain't much fellas in Jungle who could bend hard like me. I'm a hard god. you know. I can let you know now. If you believe, if you believe you better, let's see you, right? Because I can put you to the test.
That sounds like a
Because
challenge.
we did so many experiments, Charmaine. We did so many experiments in Junkanoo, right? That Manny actually discarded the wireframes because they used to take too long to make. And then, of course, we just learning how to pace, and we really wasn't all that good at pacing back in, like, I talking about around 66 again. We wasn't all that good at pacing. We could have paced, but Manny noticed something of the parades and when we are on parade, right? And he noticed this. You used to wear your pants and shirt paste with flour, right? And then you'll have your Purity Bakery flour sack that you will throw over that, and you'll draw your design on the front of that, right? That was costume then. And what he noticed that when morning comes, right, you look like an old wet rat. You see, soaking wet, runny, and of course, if you're using colors like red and black and things like that, all of them run into the whites and then run into the yellows and so on. And so Manny came with the idea of the three-piece, which means you had a shoulder piece that came over, circular, over that covered the chest area. And then he designed this piece that fell down in the front, all right? And then he had another piece that came around the back. He had another piece that came around the back, right? And that particular piece that came around the back covered the back of you. You know what I mean, Jamin? And so as a result of that, when morning come, right? When morning come, we was straight because you still look fresh. Mind you, all your pants and shirt already soaking wet. And that New Year's Day of 1970, right? We won a game with a costume called Egypt 1000 BC. Manny was really integral in that as well. And then, of course, he went off to school. But our first Boxing Day win would have been Boxing Day of 1972. Now, what was so unique about the 72 parade was that we had won the New Year's Day of 72 as well with the Golden City of Thailand. So we actually won 72 New Year's and 72 Boxing Day. All right. And then Sir Clement Maynard actually, he was the Minister of Tourism then, and he said that the groups that win, he will send the leaders to Trinidad Carnival. That was Boxing Day of 72, right? That was 72 actually. Now, Trinidad had an outbreak of polio, and so their carnival was postponed, right? The carnival was supposed to be February, but it was postponed until April. And so Sir Clement went ahead after we had won that 72 New Year's Day with the theme, the Golden City of Thailand. Right, that was hard too. Oh man, that was so pretty, right? He marched them up with that. I mean, when I say march up, I talk about march up. So I recommended Manny to go, and then Gus Cooper went, along with Peter Goldtenquist from the Valley, and then Doyle Burris also went. He paid his own way. But there we were at Trinidad Carnival. And I can remember when this particular group was crossing the stage, the grandstand at the Savannah, right? Here comes the same costume theme that we were working on for Boxing Day of 1972. When I see that man, he look at me and I look at him. He say, boy, great man, think alike. And I can tell you the truth. The Hindu gods and demons was an idea that came from Mani, right? And the Hindu gods and demons was one of the best costumes, I think, that we had for that era. When we came down Bay Street used to go two-way then, used to go up and down. And here we are now, we coming up. We big now, when I say big, we take up the whole road. The Wali was on the southern side of Bay Street going west. We was on the north side of Bay Street going east. And when Gus them see us, they back on the side. They back on the side, you hear me? To let us through. Because they know it was over. And I can tell you the truth. That was the first Boxing Day of the Saxons. That was some costume. And boy, now we get the first Boxing Day. Y'all in trouble. Y'all in trouble, And so the trend just keep going on. Now, if you want to come back, Charmaine, we could talk about 72 to 92 or 82, and then we could do 92 to 2002, something like that. If you want to do that, I think that'll be awesome because we'll then have a series. You see what I'm saying?
Sounds good.
We'll have a series. Now,
Vola, let me ask you a quick question before you go on. What's your inspiration? What was your inspiration in Junkanoo? I mean, what inspires you? I mean, apart from the music and the colors and the actual enthusiasm for Junkanoo, what inspires you?
You know what inspired me? I was artistic. You see, I tried to do paintings. Of course, I had exhibitions of paintings. I had a couple of them were right. But I didn't get joy out of just painting on a canvas, right? I wanted to be a little bit more creative, right? I knew that in Junkanoo, I could have the same costume with a different color combination, right? You have the same patterns and everything, but you have different color combinations. That excited me, right? The creativity excited me. I just love that cardboard art form, and I had this passion. To be honest with you, I was obsessed. I was obsessed with Junkanoo. I used to draw Junkanoo costume in English class in high school. So here comes the English teacher. My head down, everybody head up, my head down. And when I look up, she looking down at my paper. She say, Percival, this is not an art class. But I drawing like crazy, boy, putting in my colors and everything. That's how much I love Junkanoo. I didn't even care about no school. I didn't care about nothing. I didn't even care about waking. I didn't even want to wake. You understand what I'm saying? But you gotta go wake, you have to wake. But I can tell you the truth. When you see Boxing Day and the rest of that week before that, I remember one time I lied to my boss and tell him I was sick. Right? I was sick for the whole week going into New Year's, Boxing Day, New Year's. And I can never forget when I read the week that following week. So my boss called me in the office. So he got the newspaper. I can't see him now because he got the newspaper over his face, right? So he say, you know this fella who is on the front page? I lie, but I sick. And I making the headlines and joking. Boy, this is, yeah. I tell you what. That's just how it is, man. Passion.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
the art form of Junkanoo is incredible. We have learned so much. Chairman, I used to spend hours upon hours in the Southern Public Library up there on the government ground. If you want to find me, I in the library. You hear me? The library getting ready to close 9 o'clock. I don't even know what time it is. The front door getting ready to lock. I say, oh, say, well, I'm still up there. You know? And I used to be in that library. I mean, constantly just doing research. And I had a joy for research and for designs and concepts and so on. Man, listen, so sweet. Now you understand, right?
I got you. I got you. One more question because I know our time winding down. Could you just speak to Jackson Burnside's influence in your John Canoe career?
You want me to tell you the true story?
Yeah.
All right, listen now, because I want you all to hear this. I want you all to hear this, and you're getting this from me directly, right? Jackson and I were good friends, very good friends. We used to go to Southern Junior Senior together, and then he passed and went to St. Augustine's, and I went to Prince William. And of course, after that, he went off to school to do architectural work. Now, Jackson and those couldn't come down in Mason's Edition to play, right? So we used to go up on the hill to play with them. They couldn't dare come down in Mason's. Never could they be seen down in there. So when he finished his education up at one of the universities he's been to, I can't remember which one offhand, to be an architect, he came to me and asked me if he wanted to rush for the Saxon, right? Jackson didn't know nothing about John Canoe. Absolutely nothing. You hear me? All right. I taught him everything he knew. Everything. I taught him how to form cardboard, how to do this. I gave him many of my secrets. Right? I gave him many of my secrets. And like I say, people used to come to me and tell me, say, be careful of Jackson, you can't trust him. Right? But of course he was my friend. You know, I didn't listen. I didn't listen. But anyway, I just want you to know that I taught him everything that he knew. And I can tell you this. This is what he said to me. He said, Vola, what I learned from you, I didn't have the opportunity to learn that in the university that I went to. So right there and then, we realized now that we were the university of the Saxons. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
We taught so many artists. I talking about so many. We taught them everything that they know in John Canoe. And they were able to depart and do all sorts of things what they wanted to do. You follow me?
Yeah, I got
So
you.
I want you to know that he did not influence me. You see where my hand is?
Mm-hmm.
He didn't influence me. I taught him everything he knew. I remember when we were bringing out the invasion of the arthropods. That's when we had the house and garden insects,
Yeah.
right? When we brought that particular costume, he came into the living room. We used to meet in the front. On Saturdays, we'll sit at the dining table and we'll have our little discussions as to what we are going to do that day, right? So he asked me, say, what we doing this year? So I took a fly swat, right? And I swat the fly. And I say, see the costume there, right? So he say, that nasty thing? I say, yeah, same nasty thing right there. That's your costume. And we won that boxing day. And when he left the Saxons to form one family, he was so influenced by that meeting with the that flag That is their logo today. Check it out. Check it out.
Well, I have one more question. It deals with finances in Junkanoo. Why at this stage, some, let's say 40, 50 years later, we can't monetize Junkanoo where we could get paid like a carnival parade, or we can make some kind of money off of Junkanoo, like off of real money, not halfway, like how sometimes the bleach is halfway full, and it seems like we can't get people to come out to Junkanoo anymore. Why can't we capitalize on this truly beautiful festival that the whole world marvels over, but we can't seem to monetize it?
You know what the problem is? We are our biggest problem. We ain't want no money. We ain't want no money. Because we ain't serious. You see? We ain't serious. We always do is run mouth and talk. Oh, we can do this, oh, we can do that, oh, we can do the next. And when it's time, listen, the Prime Minister called a meeting last January, just before COVID. And he put something to us to prepare a white paper on the subject, Junkanoo Beyond Bay Street, right? You know, I couldn't get them guys to sit down for 1 second to actually try to sit down and analyze what it is we need to do to get to what you're talking about. You understand what I'm saying? We ain't serious. We ain't want no money. Money is to be made now, and money can be made, right? But it's just that we are our greatest enemy, and we need to seriously put the competition aside, man. You know we need the competition because that's where you get your energy. Put the competition aside. Let's sit down and let's plan how we can make some money. I mean, the time gotta come. We should be able to by now have all the money in the world we want. We could sponsor our own selves. We could do whatever it is we want, you know. But we just gotta get serious. Simple as that, my brother. I know what you said. Yeah, but I tried beating a dead horse. The horse done dead, right? And you still want to beat it. Dead. And a horse weighs about 1,500 pounds or more, right? If a horse is dead, ain't no man can move that horse, right? You need a payloader or something, or forklift or something, if you can move a dead horse. And so I sick up. No, I shouldn't use the word sick because Dad said don't ever use the word like sick. And boy, we can kill y'all, and boy, and we can crush y'all, and we can mash y'all up. And Dad taught me not to use those kind of connotations, those phrases. But what you're gonna do, because no, you're not gonna kill your brother. You understand what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And so yeah, but we have to get it together. I know there are some people who are really interested in where we need to go, and I believe it can happen, and it's going to happen very soon. And so hopefully that we can get wise enough and use our wisdom. We are creative artists already. Use our creative abilities. Use our ingenuity. Use our innovation, right? And use our imagination, and to get where it is that we think we should be, you know. But of course, you know, we get excited, and the emphasis is placed on just because we love the thing, you know, because we love the thing. But some money got to be made, man. Trust me, some money got to be made. I got some ideas for Charmaine, but I can't discuss those on this broadcast. But of course, Charmaine, you and I could perhaps have a little sidebar so we could talk about some things moving forward.
Well, we gotta invite you back next week because We only reach up to, and me and Papa, the million questions we have to ask you. We got to talk with John Canoe now. But we only got like 10 minutes, and trust me, that ain't enough time for us to go through everything, but we got to shoot at you. But great. So Papa, sound like we got to have part two next week. Hey?
Definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
Vola has a very interesting story that the whole world needs to hear, because you hear little pieces and parts and pieces from different individuals, but you never really get the real story until you talk to the individual himself.
Right.
And I
I am
really spoke to
when
that.
Charmaine called me, right? Charmaine and my wife are good friends,
Mhm.
and
See
you
in
know
a
I
minute.
cannot, I cannot go against my wife. Hey, Charmaine.
That's,
So that's your buddy.
that's
And so when you called me, I was delighted because I know this is something that is very necessary in our next interview, which will be next week. Of course, we could change the scene up a little bit. Um, we may have to do a part three because what I got to tell you next week can take just about the same amount of time.
fine. Once it's John Canoe, me and Papa heads to the screen, we listening. You know, me and him is we been beating this pavement. I been beating it from I was born. I,
Okay.
you know, I done been in the belly,
So
casket. Yes,
Ratsy,
Hey, what's happening?
this is a good thing, man. I appreciate this. Like I say, we could do a sidebar and let's work some things out because you know what's going to happen this year. There's not going to be any kind of parade, so maybe we could think about some other interesting things that we could do um, to lead up to Boxing Day and New Year's Day. Yeah.
Vola, I'm a John Canoe thinker. I was a part of the think tank, and John Canoe is something that is run through my mind 365 days, 24/7. When I get a break, I just constantly thinking other things of how to elevate it and
Hmm.
how to get the news out there from my perspective. And one of the things I remember, Jeff Lloyd always told me when I used to go on his show, that's before he became a politician, he used to call me the encyclopedia of John Canoe because I have so many things. Even when I was in the system back then, Kishleen reminded me a couple of weeks ago when I was telling her about the training and different stuff. And she said, Shamin, a lot of the things you are bringing out now, do you realize that you were doing it from back then? And when I really sat down and I began to think about it, Vola, I pulled a drawer out and I have these DVD cams from almost 15 years ago when I was in there doing the training and doing the different stuff with all these information on it. Where I was talking about doing what I'm doing now and trying to get it out there and get everybody involved and rest on the tribalism and let's make this thing a revenue. I have all of that. So I'm
Hmm.
trying somebody now to put that information on a CD or a jump drive for me. So if anybody who's listening into our conversation tonight knows how to transfer those information to CD or jump drive, please inbox me because I got to get that information out there. I want to do a show where I could just show all those things that we've been doing for years. Even
Right.
with the thing what we're doing here now. We've been doing it, people just didn't get to see it. Like,
Right. Let
oh,
me just say, one more thing that came to my mind today as I was thinking about you. And this is very important. Junkanoo groups that have survived over the years, like the Saxons and the Valley, mainly, right? We survived because we are artistic leaders. Follow? We don't have to depend and rely on no one to do our work. We do our own work, right? I remember when Bookie used to build for Chippy. When Bookie got tired building for Chippy, Bookie went somewhere else. I think he went to the Makers or somewhere. But this is what happens. Winston Sherman Sham left Nassau to go to Wake in Grand Bahama because Patelco needed him in Freeport. So when he left, the Vikings died. When Bookie left Chippy group died. And most of the guys came to me, right? And so when Sammy Thompson passed away, right, that was almost a demise for the music makers. I mean, it was just no way they could have catch themselves after that, right? The contribution that he had made. And so if you're planning on forming a jungle group, right, and you are not artistic, right, and you can't do your own work, you might as well forget it because you're gonna end up on the rocks. You understand what I'm saying? And so this is what happened to a majority of groups over the years. That is why they are non-existent today, because they had to rely on other people to do their work for them. And that just can't cut it if you want to be consistent and you want to be competitive. I leave you with that.
Boy, Vola, that was powerful just now. That said a lot.
Yeah, that's an aha moment for me, like Oprah say. That's an aha moment for me. But Vola, Percy, Vola, Sledge, Francis.
Yes, Yahweh.
We thank you from the bottom of my heart, Paparazzi, myself, and my producer, Brighton Roll. We want to thank you for taking time. Oh, watch it.
The dance.
Tell Darren Bastian is my boy, you know, he used to be right on my right hand side, you know.
Yes,
Uh,
but you know, we thank everybody for tuning in tonight. And again, like we said, we're gonna have a part 2 next week.
That's right.
Getting at 8, and we're gonna be Papa. I can be in awe, just like I was in awe today. I gotta anticipate what I'm gonna do next week, and we can have our questions. What we can have them for you all, but we can let you do your story again.
Yeah, have them line up. You know, I could run on now until next Christmas, you know, not this one coming. Until next Christmas.
All right.
1,001 nights of stories.
All right. So we said earlier, we thank you, and we will see you again next week, Tuesday at 8 with a legend of Junkanoo, a legend of our time. Mr. Percy, Vola Sledge, Francis. We can talk with all them other nicknames next week because we want to know why you.
Yeah, I know. They have a story. Those names have a story too.
Right.
All right, good night.
Okay, good night. One love.
Okay. Have a good night.
Okay.